All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2. And we do have a big announcement. After hiring PR firms and marketing firms and doing some collaboration with them, we have decided on our brand name. And without further ado, we present to you the Fifth Quarter Collective. And we'll be breaking down random sports topics. Four friends decided to create this, and we're going to be diving into quite a few different things here. But wanted to start off by checking in with Coleman Young from an undisclosed location traveling the globe today. How's travel been?
Well, before I kind of get into that, I would like to say I really did like the drum roll feature. Didn't know we could do that. So a lot of new tech.
We're a tech podcast, slowly but surely.
A lot of new tech showing up this week. So just week by week, just be on the lookout for something new. I think Jay's going to be dropping little tidbits of new things and new features of stuff we can do every week. So kind of keep on the lookout for that. But yeah, I like to travel. I travel a fair amount, I think, but I always have a giant text exchange, like a giant text thread of my thoughts while I solo travel. Because I feel the need to tell someone, but I don't want to be on the phone 24/7 because if I want to talk shit on someone, I don't want to do it out loud. So I have a giant thread of just information, tidbits, short stories that I come across on a daily basis while traveling. So today, going up north, actually, I'm in Worcester, Massachusetts, for everyone, all my fans out there, and everyone out there. If you guys want to stop by, not the best place in the world, but serves a purpose.
Now, Coleman, can we name the segment Coleman's Caravan for when the future travelers can maybe meet up with
Absolutely.
you around the country, maybe even across the globe when we get international?
Dude,
Maybe
yeah.
they want you to try a few beers or go to a few soccer games. So I think this should be the official announcement of Coleman's Caravan.
Absolutely, and we're always looking for advertising partners as well.
Always. We'll take
Always.
We'll sell our souls. We will.
The segment is brought to you by Adam and Eve. Make sure you get your sex toys today.
Oh, dang.
Nah, I'm just kidding. That's not a real advertisement, but it could be. Beside the point. On my travels today, I've seen everything from people eating hard-boiled eggs in Ziploc bags on full flights to 5 people in a row not knowing how to count to 16. That I'm in 16C. No, actually, I'm in 16C. 5 minutes later, another person says, you know what? I'm in 16C. Actually, sir, you're in row 15. Not being able to count to 15, 16, whatever. But one of the questions that really stumped me today and really makes me nervous, and I wanted to ask this to the group, is I was placed in an emergency exit row seat. Do you guys ever feel that the weight and that everyone on that plane is looking at you and like their lives? If like the plane, hypothetically, plane goes down, you're in charge. You and every single other person on that row is in charge of everyone's life. Does that ever give you like a sense of like nervousness? Do you guys ever feel like a little weary, like, oh shit, what if the plane does go down and I'm actually in charge of this, rather than just getting the extra leg room? I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts around this.
I mean, for me, if I get be lucky enough to sit in the exit row, I mean, I'm pretty much just throwing in the headphones, and if they look at me, I'll be like, "Yeah, I got you." And then, when worst comes to worst, and the plane comes down, it's every man for themselves, every woman and man or woman for themselves. I mean, legitimately. I mean, come on. Sorry, selfish, but hey, I don't know.
So when you take that oath, when they want a verbal confirmation, you take that oath. Yes, I'm willing to help people out. That's all a lie to you.
Pretty much. I mean, then as they're still giving the demonstration, I'll probably put my earbuds in, close my eyes, and it'll be, hopefully smooth sailing from there. But
Hope I never am on a plane with you when it goes down.
yeah, it is a selfish move for sure. But it is what it is. Sorry, folks.
I also visualize like what I would do, but full on knowing that I likely wouldn't even make it past the first step to like open the emergency exit because I haven't been paying attention. So I have realistic expectations, but I too am typically putting in the headphones and dozing off right as the announcements start going.
I think if I survive obviously you're going to be praying, but like if like the plane stops, you're on the ground, like you're in the middle of a field, and everybody's like okay, the amount of adrenaline going through my body is going to be like a kickoff on NFL Sunday. Nobody's stopping me. That door is jammed, not going to be jammed anymore. And we're all getting off the boat, or excuse me, the plane, not the boat. But
what if instead of a field now? What if you're landing in the Hudson?
then I guess we're gonna have to find a boat. That's what we're gonna have to do. Yep.
Same adrenaline though. Like I'm ready. Like it's go time.
Yeah, I think if I'm in water, I'm going to be much more terrified because that just treading water, that's going to be difficult.
You have a life jacket that you do have under your seat.
Got your floaties.
True. I've never checked for the life jacket.
I haven't either. They might not be there, but
that could just be like that could just be a complete myth. Like everybody, you got life jackets, and like you land in the Hudson. That was never a thing. Like we just told you.
Well, to be fair, they did have life jackets when they landed in the Hudson.
See, I didn't know that. See, I learned something, but I've never checked, so I would probably have to take about
I haven't either.
10 to 15 seconds to figure out where it is. Which right there, you're already like times of the essence. And then I like to sit window. So if I'm sitting window, I can't just like hurdle over the armchair, like in front of me and try to get out. So you got to be in like single file line because once you start doing that, somebody gets tripped up, then everybody's stopped.
Yeah. Then, I don't know. I feel like if you're in the Hudson like scenario or whatever, like kind of going off what I'm saying about like just getting out, like you're kind of a nuisance if you kind of stay in there. Like, what do you do? Like, I don't even know what you do. Do you like stand on the wing? Like, I don't know what the protocol is there.
It's kind of like a football gang tackle where you're kind of like pushing people, like get moving, so nobody's holding you up. Like if grandma's taking her time,
start shoving everybody.
Right.
I think I'm beelining to the Biscoff bars, hoarding them, and then I'm gonna be kind of running the show on the deserted island by handing out the food supply.
Dude, yeah.
Another thing that came to mind as well is when to strike up a conversation at the airport. Because I'm a friendly guy. I'm a friendly face, I like to think. However, my flight this morning was at 5 a.m. I get to the airport at 3:30 in the parking lot. I then get on the tram from the economy lodge, the economy parking, to then go to the terminal. Last seat on the bus. I sit down, tell the lady, hey, I'm flying X airline. Guy sits next to me, 3:30 in the morning, strikes up a conversation, says, I'm flying Southwest because I'm too poor to fly any other airline. It's 3:30 in the morning. I don't even know how to respond to that. Hey, man, I like Southwest. I was loyal to Southwest.
Yeah.
I don't think it has anything to do with money. It's a quality airline. And then continues to strike up a conversation and talk to me till we get to the terminal at 3:30 in the morning. I understand trying to be friends. Maybe you're lonely and maybe you're new to the city and you just want to meet someone new. 3:30 on the way to the terminal in the economy bus is not the place to do it. So if that guy's listening, maybe another time, more than happy to get drinks.
Also, can we talk about Southwest is no more expensive than Delta as most times? Like, they're not really, like, it's not
the same.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're paying for bags, I guess, but, like, I don't know.
If for people who are taller, at least in my opinion, Southwest has the nicest seats because they actually, like, extend high enough where you could, like, lean your head back. All the other ones, like, you can't really lean your head back because you're too tall or your shoulders are too broad. So, like, you're just basically just, like, touching shoulders with everybody the whole flight. So just my 2 cents. I like Southwest.
3:30 is way too early to start talking about anything, though. Like, unless you're traveling with somebody, and even at that, like if I was traveling with Bo and it was 3:30 in the morning, I don't know. We might not be talking till we touch down and wherever we're going.
We know what we got to do. We got to go through TSA. We're just going to go sit down. There's not much that needs to be said. Everybody understands what's going on.
Yeah.
I did want to throw one thing out there with the airport. I think the most annoying thing for me, people who are listening to podcast music full blast without any earphones, and it's just like on full on display for everybody. I think automatically jail and like banned from flying. Yep. I don't know how you can be that inconsiderate, but that's up there for maybe top 3 pet peeves at the airport.
Hammurabi's code should exist for airport inconveniences. I truly believe that.
Well, I mean, that's what I can completely understand. I think the other red flag, in my opinion, is like if somebody's trying to cut you off in line especially at Southwest, like, you know how you get like all the numbers and people are like, oh, excuse me. Like, people, we're all sitting on this plane in the next 10 minutes. Like, whether you're the seat in front of me or vice versa, like, no, it's not that big of a
The
deal.
same, like,
Especially
group.
when they try to cut through or like you're in a line.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's all I'm saying.
You don't have to be actually like, oh, I'm, A25. Hey, are you A26? And are you like,
Yeah.
come on, we're in the group. It's gonna be all right. You're gonna get an aisle seat. You're probably all right if you're whatever group. But yeah,
Right. Right.
So yeah, thank you guys for listening to
Yeah, the
episode
first-
1 of Coleman's Caravans. We'll be back for more next week. We got the flight home. Connector.
who knows? The fine folks of Worcester.
Yeah. We got a connector. Be on the lookout for more stories, tidbits, information throughout the travels. But I think there's been a lot of important things that happened within the past week in the sports universe. One just kind of coming out today are SEC kickoff times. Schedule's getting released slowly but surely. We're all Ole Miss grads. I don't know if we mentioned that in the first pod. So a couple Ole Miss games got released today. We're on the CW for one of them, SEC Network for another, SEC Network Plus. But they also moved the day of the Egg Bowl from that Thanksgiving night to Friday. I know that's somewhat of a bit of a controversial take amongst our group right here. So I'll kind of let Luke have the floor first and kind of give us his thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, so traditionally the Egg Bowl has always been on Thanksgiving night. It's always been that primetime slot for the most part. Not all for the primetime spot, but it's been on Thanksgiving for as long as I can remember. But they're certainly making some changes now that I think are actually pretty good. They're playing it on Black Friday. And, specifically for my situation, Thanksgiving in our family, nobody really like watches sports. They'll throw on like the NFL game, the Detroit, and whoever the Detroit Lions are playing, whoever the Cowboys are playing. But nobody really wants to watch like Ole Miss football because not everyone in my family went to Ole Miss, so they don't care. But as far as like the people, the bigger picture here as far as viewership, they're only competing with I think what is it? Amazon Prime now owns the rights to Black Friday in the NFL, so they're only really competing with one game as opposed to Thanksgiving. They're competing with all how many games they have, like 3, and it's that NBC prime time. But yeah, I'm for this change, and I know Bo may see something else about it, but yeah, that's how I feel. What I feel about it.
I'm zagging the other way. I am a man of tradition, right? We celebrate Thanksgiving in November. We don't celebrate it in July or August, right? All the holidays fall in the same month, usually around the same time. And with this being said, everybody, I was there my senior year of college when Mike Leach, rest in peace, coached his last football game. I witnessed that on Thanksgiving. I was at that game. But now, to be completely honest with you, probably just for a money reason, that there's less competition on Black Friday than there is on Thanksgiving. Now we're moving it and ruining a very long tradition that I very much enjoy, because not only do we have Thanksgiving when all the family gets back together, but we also have Ole Miss football, which obviously we're biased because we're from Ole Miss and hotty toddy, always rooting for them. But that's just my 2 cents. I'm a man of tradition. I think they should keep it. And I also get, though, from a student perspective, why it would be more fun, because you're usually back for exams at that time. So the crowd should be much more involved than it has been, because a lot of the kids came from out of state. So it'd be like half capacity, depending on it, like student body wise. And I think if they do move this to Black Friday, obviously it's going to be sellout. Like, all the students are going to be back because they have exams. So that side will be good. Trying to look at the positives, but was a huge fan of it on Thanksgiving. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think you guys hit on all of it. For me, either way, I think I feel kind of indifferent. Either way, we'll beat up on state, whether it's Thursday or Friday. I'm not too worried, but it is. I kind of like it that it's not competing with all the NFL games. I think it'll free it up for more viewership and just get more eyeballs on Ole Miss overall. And speaking of college football too, or NCAA in general, I know there was some big news and legislation actually passed, was it this past week, about revenue sharing potential with athletes. And Coleman, I think you've read up on it probably the most out of anybody. If you want to just break it down briefly for those that don't.
So the House versus the NCAA, groundbreaking court case, and possibly one of the final court cases where the NCAA is being sued. Just to kind of break this down and the 50,000 foot overview here, what the court case kind of was and really what came out of it is all the athletes since 2016 have been given the right to become compensated. So the NCAA now owes, I want to say like $2.6 billion to all the former athletes from 2016 and on, because that was the year where, and why 2016, you might ask? Strange year. Because the case was brought up in 2020. So all the 2016 seniors would then be seniors in 2020, if that makes sense. So that's kind of why they did 2016 as that date. All the conferences and then the league as a whole now has to back pay all of those former athletes a piece of really what they've earned, whether it's a football player, basketball player, women's basketball player, whoever that person is, they are now responsible. And part of that $2.6 billion lawsuit. So they're getting a little back pay there. But it also, in current times, gives schools the ability to pretty much create a salary cap. So based off of the school's revenue from sponsorships, ticket sales, concessions, parking, TV rights as well, all of these schools will now have pretty much a salary cap to pay athletes, in addition to their NIL. So now athletes are getting money from two different forms and two different, not so much collectives, but from the school itself and then the school's collective. So kind of just changing the landscape of college sports as it is. Now schools are actively paying and will be in the process of actively paying players from their own pockets based off of what the athletes bring in. So monumental, groundbreaking court case, and kind of changes really what the NCAA stood for and really just the future of the NCAA, just because it is such a historic and monumental case. So I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts around what's the future of the NCAA look like. Do you guys like this idea of salary caps and collectives, and really kind of where are you guys standing with the future of the NCAA?
Yeah, I think when I was looking more into this, I like that the players are getting more piece of the pie with how much money that they're generating for these schools. I think it gets pretty complex though when you start to look at some of the downstream effects, right? Of looking at different schools, different conferences, different types of compensation, but beyond that too, seems like there's going to be some complexity with like Title IX and how are you valuing and paying the women's sports, right? Because the main drivers at any school will be men's football and basketball, probably women's basketball too. How does that affect all the other athletes? I think that probably gets pretty sticky. I'm not sure what the exact solution is there, but broadly speaking, I think you look at NIL, you look at this revenue sharing, you look at the portal with everybody jumping. I think amateurism as we knew it is likely dead. And we're really seeing in real time how we're going to be redefining college athletes. And my hope is that we can actually start to have them sign contracts that keep them at schools for a certain amount of years. So it's not just like they're jumping ship every year or so. And that way it gives both the coaches and the players a bit more security. But right now I think it's a bit too messy. That's my take on it.
Luke, do you want to take it away or should I go?
You go ahead. I'll kind of finish it off.
All right. So I completely agree with you. I think they need to make the contracts where there's at least set in stone, this is what's happening. So for Quinn, Sean Judkins was our star running back, left to go to Ohio State. If you transfer once, I'm completely fine with that. But for some of these guys, they've gone to 4 schools in 4 years, and it's basically, that needs to end, in my opinion. I think unless
it's anti-JT Daniels.
Some would say. But the way I really look at it, though, is basketball. I think if you look at how the G League is paying people and how people can make money overseas, like that's going to be the biggest driver of like how can the NCAA compete with that? Because I know the Thompson twins they didn't go to college, they played in the G League, I believe, or a different league.
Overtime Elite.
And they got paid, and then now they're in the NBA. So I think it's definitely going to be a money thing. And if you were one of these athletes for specifically basketball, why wouldn't you go play where you can actually make more money and then go into the NBA if that's a better route. So it'll be interesting to see how they are trying to compete against all of these new leagues that are coming out and against the overseas, because obviously now the NBA is growing a ton, as I said in the last pod, and overseas is a big deal. But I like the idea overall. It's going to be interesting to see how the rev share gets split out, because for the big schools, like some schools are only good at one sport. Like Duke is really only good at basketball. Like they probably bring in all the money for that school, and football is slightly on the decline, in my opinion. No, Coleman, Jake,
No,
hit me
football
with
is the
it.
main driver at every single school outside the Big East.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, good point. Okay, I'm gonna end my topic right there. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty pro player in this. Pro like, hey, I've always been like, hey, they need to get paid because these universities have been making exorbitant amount of money from these players and benefiting from it. But at that point, you have to pay. It gets a lot of it's just kind of like this wild west right now. That's like up until this point with this case, it's kind of just like anything goes. So anybody can seemingly just jump around. Like what was that guy's name that is suing Florida now for like basically they offered him so much money he didn't end up going there or something. I don't know, but it's stuff like that that's happening. That shouldn't happen. I believe in the contracts. I think it needs to be run like the NFL now, with contracts and stuff like that. But as far as like, Title IX and like a lot of the other sports, like, these universities are like starting, it's going to have to be run by like a business. And if these, a lot of these sports are not necessarily making any money, well, unfortunately, like they're going to probably get cut. Like a lot of the Olympic sports, maybe men's golf, tennis, or any of the golf really. But I don't know. It's just, it's a tough situation. I mean, we're big football fans, so and especially at Ole Miss, where we're seemingly right now we're really thriving. But what these schools that are not necessarily they're football focused, but they're not good at football. So I don't know what happens to them as far as their fans too. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's just interesting.
I think you guys kind of nailed it on the head, but I think there's two things that really one that's happening already like in progress now, and then one that's going to happen in the future. Right now, you can already see the influx of people staying in college. Judging from, I don't know if you guys were locked in last night or the night. I think it was it was last night or the night before. For guys who were pulling out of the NBA draft and who's going to college. 2 nights ago was like the last time they could pull their name out of the hat before they could return to college. It's amazing to see how many great athletes are taking that senior year or taking that sophomore year and returning to college, like Coleman Hawkins, Matthew Morrell with Ole Miss, Jalen Sears with Alabama, like high level guys who are going to make an impact at the national level, saying, you know what, I don't need to go to the NBA right now. I'm getting paid enough as it is in college. I'll go play another year. I'll go try to win a national championship, go try to win a Big East, SEC championship, whatever that is. So I think that process has already started of keeping guys in college. And to your guys' point of the contracts, I think that's going to be a big part of that. I don't want to say collective bargaining, but those contracts with that salary cap. A lot of schools are going to structure it. Hey, you get X amount of money freshman year, and if you keep staying sophomore year, junior year, senior year, that money's going to double, triple, quadruple the more years you stay and the more time you give to this university. So I think that's going to be one of the foundations of that salary cap rule. The second thing is, I forgot. I had it. I didn't write it down, and I should have. But I
See?
completely. Oh no, I did. No, I got it. I remembered it. Is with the revenue sharing. Is this going to kill all the smaller conferences? The SEC brings in a couple billion, or no, several hundred million. I think it's in the 700-800 millions in TV contracts. The Big Ten's like 1.3 billion in TV contracts, and that's just the TV. That's not including sponsorships, donations, anything like that. So now these big schools, big conferences are having exorbitant budgets to pay athletes, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, lacrosse, whatever. Is this the death of the smaller group of 5 schools? Is this the death of Western Michigan? No shame to Western Michigan. Colorado State, San Jose State, App State. Like, what are these schools can't really compete money-wise on the scale now that it's all legalized? How are they going to compete? So I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I almost wonder if it'll shake out depending on the prestige of the school. If it'll be almost, we look at it like major leagues, AAA, AA, something along those lines. But another thought I was having too was you're talking about like death of potentially some of these smaller conferences. How far away are we from kind of dissolving or getting away from the NCAA when it comes to these huge power football conferences and basketball conferences? Because at some point, the NCAA will be obsolete. Like I think they're obviously trying to hold on to as much power and influence that they can, but these conferences will be able to stand up for themselves and probably already can. So I'm sure there's a lot of litigation ahead and messy legal battles there. But
This was a big blow to it, and I think it's a lot sooner than we realize. But let's say instead of 2.6 billion, the NCAA had to pay out. What if it were 20 billion? Then does the NCAA even have that kind of money? It could have gotten dissolved just like that. So I think whether it's a couple court cases away, I think it's a relatively shorter time than we think of the NCAA being dissolved and amateur athletics moving to minor leagues, professional minor leagues at that point.
right.
Can we get
And
relegation? Can we
That'd be
just get
sick.
relegation already? I think that's the best way to do it, because some of these, like, I mean, it's probably what it seems like is we're going to get, the Big Ten and the SEC. And then you got conferences that are, pretty good, but they're not to the same caliber. Like, what is the ACC and what is the Big 12, like those teams, there are some really good teams still on there. And maybe, you send a Vanderbilt out, or even like I don't even know who's another bet, like an Arkansas. I mean, I know those have been staple SEC teams for, from in a long time, but maybe we could get some, Oklahoma State, or, can we get a good Baylor team or TCU team, or even, wherever Florida State may land, maybe they end up landing in the SEC at some point, or wherever Notre Dame goes. Like, yeah, I don't even know. There's so many things to talk about here.
I completely agree. I don't have much to chime in. I think you guys all basically touched every base. The one thing that I think is wrong with the Big Ten, at least now that it's going to really unfold, is how you have coast to coast teams. You have the Terps who could be playing USC. You're literally on the opposite sides. You know what I mean? And the travel for the players, how does that work? And there's no way they're going to be able to be in school how they were in school when they're playing on the West Coast. It's kind of like the players who would go to Hawaii and play basketball. Like every game you're playing, you're flying at least 5 hours one way and then trying to get a few games before you fly back. So that could be a logistical issue, but I think you guys hit everything else on the head.
I did want to pose a question. If you played before 2016, how do you think you're feeling if you're a big time star?
What the hell?
Yeah.
Bush got his license back, so that's kind of cool. He's like, all right, I'm winning at some things, I guess.
Fair. Johnny Football would have been probably the richest. Him or Tebow probably would have made the most money ever if NIL was around when those two were here. Because Tebow literally was the face of college football, and same with Manziel. Like just the mania.
You don't think Manziel made money?
Well, he made money under the table, but imagine how much more money he'd be making. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like if he could go out, he probably could make a couple $100,000 in a day just being him. Literally, just probably throwing some party, you can make $100,000. But
yeah, I don't think anybody probably rivals Manziel in terms of stardom. And like if he was playing today, Arch hasn't even played fully and been the starter, and there's a lot of hype around him, but the excitement and play of Manziel, I don't know if would anybody come close in your mind for
Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
Those USC teams.
Yeah.
As far as just being electric, I think Lamar Jackson would be up there because his year at Louisville was like everybody was just in awe his first year because he was just some guy. I mean, Louisville football you never think of as like this is that team, and then it was a huge deal when they played Clemson. It was Watson versus Jackson. Like that was a ginormous game in college. I still remember that, but definitely think Manziel takes the cake with that one.
Baker, you'd say Baker. He was a pretty electric figure.
True.
At both Oklahoma and
Texas Tech.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he would be a pretty electric. Definitely would be making a lot of money for sure.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much aligned with being pro player. I'm glad that they're able to get a cut, especially for the large percentage of them that don't go on to and actually play in the pros, or just like injuries that may occur. But I do think it's going to become a lot more complex. And even today, I can't imagine recruiting. You listen to all these interviews of coaches trying to figure it out. And I mean, it really is full blown free agency all year round, essentially. And even I think it's really kind of ruined the bowl games quite a bit with so many guys not playing and entering the portal. And that this year, more than any other year, I really lost a lot of interest in quite a few games. I don't know if any of you felt the same way too.
Yeah, I think if they were able to tie part of the payout to the bowl games, for example, I mean, there's obviously the argument like Jake Butt when he tore his ACL, was projected to be a high pick, and then I believe he flopped in the NFL because he was injured, right? They're kind of like stepping stones that way. So I completely understand from the player being like, there's no point. But if they were able to tie, like, hey, if we win this, you get X amount of money. If we lose, you get this amount of money. But there's still money to be made if you play in this game. That would at least have the incentives aligned with the players and then the bowl games.
I think a lot of collectives are structuring their contracts that way now. I think this past year, it still had people dropping out and not playing, but I think it was less than or less talked about from the past couple of years. So I think that's something that's going to change moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And very randomly, is the NIT? Are we witnessing the death of the NIT with all the teams that opted not to play in that? I know nobody expected an NIT curveball here, but just curious.
Probably for the younger or like the smaller schools, but I think because recruiting is so pivotal to making next year's team so good, like that's why Ole Miss, for example, like they got invited to the NIT this year, but they decided, well, we got to make our team stronger for next year, and any time that we can go visit a recruit is more valuable than go winning a tournament that seemingly is not anything. But shout out to Butler and the Indiana States of the world, that got to really shine in their life. What was his name? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like it is kind of cool for those smaller schools, like those small players. Wow, I'm really coming up with a point here. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was discovered. I know he was discovered before then, but that was his kind of like shining moment there. And now I think he transferred. I can't remember exactly what school he transferred to, but he transferred to somewhere, and I'm sure he's making a decent amount of cash now. So good for him.
St. Louis, he's making a good amount of coin.
Is that the Billikens?
Yes.
Sweet. Yeah, that's kind of what I see about it.
I'll say this: I didn't think you'd bring up the NIT today. I'm jacked up talking
Dude,
about.
I know. I was like, whoa.
I'm jacked up talking about Indiana State, Seton Hall. You guys didn't watch that? Did you guys watch the NIT final this year?
I did not.
It was electric. It was an electric final. But no, to your point, I'm a big proponent of the NIT. I watch it. Takes second fiddle to the NCAA tournament, naturally. But if you think about it, Seton Hall, they won the title, last second shot. They lost 3 weeks of recruiting. You know who's not fielding a great team next year? Seton Hall. A lot of their players were then poached in the transfer portal because their coach didn't have enough time to go out, recruit his own players, and then recruit other players, whether it's the transfer portal, high school recruiting. They lost, I want to say, their top 4 players to other schools after 1 year after winning the NIT final. So it just goes to show you, I don't think it's the death of the NIT. I just think what it is not the same when we were younger. The fact that it's also being played in Indiana, no offense to Indiana and college basketball there, it's a religion, but it should be at the Garden. It doesn't have the same lore. It doesn't have the same pageantry like it normally did. So I do. I think it's yes, it's great that it's still there, but I don't think it's what it used to be.
Yeah. On the topic of pageantry too, I don't know if you guys all saw, but with NCAA football coming out in July, I was sad to see they don't have the jump round for the Badgers. They don't have some of the other iconic songs and traditions in there. But I did see Lane. They're not going to have any coach's license, but Lane did say he'd give his likeness for free just to be in there. But I don't think they're going to do it this year. So interested to see where that will go, but we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on that either.
You'll get
I saw-
over it.
I
It's
saw
like a game.
Road to Glory or whatever. You know how you start in high school? I don't think they're starting in high school anymore. So I don't know
Yeah.
what. I mean, there's so many other parts of the game that were not in the game, like the transfer portal and stuff. Like, obviously, there's more things to focus on, but I don't know. It'll be. It's. I mean, I think nobody's not excited about this. So, yeah, it'll be fun time for sure.
Yeah. And I think the next thing we were wanting to segue to was just talking when we're recording this. This is before game 5 of Mavs and T-Wolves, so yet to see what has to come there. But I think everybody was a little surprised that the brooms weren't brought out and that the Mavs didn't close it out there. Any thoughts on the game or just on either of the teams so far?
I'll start. I mean, I still have faith in Anthony Edwards. Definitely think he's a player. I think Luka, Kyrie, I think are definitely extremely hard just to match up against. So I think they should be able to close it out this series. I'm just more hoping for this game, not the series, but I'm hoping for an exciting game at least, put it that way. I just want Anthony Edwards really to go off, and if they lose by a few points, it'll be entertaining to watch.
Yeah. I mean, if T-Wolves win this game, they're not down. They're not, out obviously now. But if they keep winning, obviously, then it's going to be a great series. But yeah, I mean, this next game is really pivotal for them. I mean, they're all of them are really pivotal at this point. But
right,
I don't know. I'm still pulling for the T-Wolves. I know the Mavs are, stepping on the gas a little bit, or they should be. But allegedly, it's just another game for them. It's the Timberwolves Super Bowl at this point. So I don't know.
Yeah.
The series is over. Doesn't matter. No team's ever come back from 3-0.
So it's Celtics and Mavs. Is that the final?
Minnesota could win tonight. I don't know if Lively's playing or not. If he's not playing, I think they win tonight, and then Dallas goes on to win Game 6. Fine, whatever. But my question for you guys is, and looking at a little bit further, why, with the Timberwolves, is Karl Anthony Towns the answer? He's taken a lot of heat the past couple of years. That team's taken a lot of heat with Gobert, the trade, Cat. Is he an elite player? Is he the kind of guy you can win a title with? Judging from his stats this series, looking like those haters are coming true. Looking like they're right. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on what do you do with Karl Anthony Towns? Let's say they lose tonight or they lose Game 6 and they're done, out. What do you do with him in the future? Because he signed his Supermax contract. He's getting paid after this year. He's going to be owed like 60, 80 million in a few years. What do you guys do with it? What do you guys do with him? The future of the team, stuff like that.
It's a good question. I mean, as someone that's, the Grizzlies, for example, a team I'm a fan of and, have played the Timberwolves quite often and have lost quite often to them from, random just last minute shots from Karl Anthony Towns. I think he's still a good player, but he does have pretty consistent bad nights. I don't know. You can kind of see both ways. You can get rid of him or you can't. He just has that one really good night that kind of like, where all the people overreacting before, where they just are like, oh, he's the best thing. Like they just completely turn the blind eye, I guess. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I kind of on that point. Are we just like? Obviously, he's taking a lot of heat, but if he, let's just say, finishes out, let's just say they win the next 2 games, then lose, and he plays phenomenal, is this still a big conversation? Obviously, it's the Supermax, so they're already committed to him. I think it'd be very hard as an owner to go the other way and be like, yeah, this was a horrendous decision this soon. Plus, who really wants to, as far as I understand salary cap, who wants to really pick that up if you try to wheel and deal? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think a lot of teams are going to be jumping for that because it's not like I don't think he really makes or breaks the entire team. Like if you were talking about,
do you think they're not jumping for the contract or jumping for him?
Both.
Because Phoenix picked up Durant's contract last year or 2 years ago.
True, but it's Kevin Durant to Karl Anthony Towns. It's slightly different, in my opinion. Like I'd much rather KD.
I think the past 2 seasons, Minnesota's gone deeper than Phoenix. The past 2 years.
True. I think Phoenix's problem is they have a superstar problem. Like Bradley Beal, KD, and Devin Booker are not going to be sliding their feet 94 feet the whole game. Like, let's just get that out of the way. You know, KD's not locking up under the rim. He just kind of wants to play the offensive side of the ball, lock up when he has to on defense. But if it's him and LeBron starts backing him down, like we all know LeBron's got him right where he needs him.
Where's prime Avery Bradley when you need him for some full court defense?
That's it.
That's
the name.
That's a deep cut for you. I don't know. I mean, they won't have a superstar problem after they draft Bronny James, right? I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll have Bronny, Bron, Beal, Booker, Durant. I mean, what more do you need? Do you even need a bench?
Play with 7 guys.
Ishii is cooking something down there.
He's cooking the books, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
He doesn't know where the money's coming from, but it's coming from somewhere.
It's all that Rocket Mortgage money.
Is that Rocket Mortgage? I thought it was another guy. He might be doing Rocket Mortgage is like David something. I think it's another guy. I think the Rocket Mortgage guy is the guy that owns the Cavs, I think. But
I thought that was Quicken Loans.
They're all getting rich over all kinds of stuff. Anyway.
I think one thing with Cat is, Coleman, if you're getting rid of him, is there anybody you have in mind that you're seeking? Or I'm kind of with you. I don't know if the Cat Gobert duo has been, I wouldn't say you can coin it successful. I love that they have Naz Reid. I think you can probably try to go out and get some other bigs. I don't know some of the upcoming free agents, but maybe we do a segment on that of who they could go after next week too, or something like that. But I'm just not sure.
Stay tuned in July. Free agency season. Stay tuned, listeners.
Yeah. Dude,
arguably we'll definitely be breaking all this stuff down.
The NBA. To some, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll be on top of it.
I got a tidbit to throw into here. So if you're the Milwaukee Bucks in this somewhat same scenario with Damian Lillard, where as the ball lies, what is your next move? Obviously, you have Giannis. He hasn't played in the postseason the past few seasons because of injuries, right? You have Middleton and Dame. So on paper, you easily should be basically conference finals every season just based off that. But with Dame, I don't know, him and Giannis, also with the coaching change midway through the season, what do you guys do with that whole scenario? Do you just let it ride out and try to build the chemistry, or do you think there's a rift between superstars?
I think when it comes to the Bucks, Chris Middleton scares me a lot with his knee health. I know the focus has been on Giannis, but Middleton's missed some time, and he reminds me a little bit of what Todd Gurley was. Of course, I wouldn't say he was on the same level of maybe like stardom, but you see those knee issues in these guys, and he's in almost to his mid-30s now. I think it's time to dish Middleton. But I don't know what you do with Dame either. I feel like they really missed Drew Holiday this year. And as much as people are excited for the name, I don't know if you look back at this year and are really happy with the results.
I don't know. I think it goes to show defense wins championships for sure. I mean, yeah. Drew Holiday and on the Celtics, I mean, they look phenomenal. And I know we were bashing Tatum last podcast. I know we were all kind of hammering Tatum, but
don't know why.
Not Coleman, excluding Coleman. But definitely the Drew Holiday situation with the Bucks. Definitely missing him.
What do the Celtics need to do to be on track for Jaylen Brown's famous interview where he said they were going to win like 8 or 9 in a row? They got to get going. I think that window might be closing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think they need help from like Phineas and Ferb or some shit like that. Go back, get a time machine.
Dude,
win the Golden State series. Somehow win a couple other series, get to the finals, win 4. And then this year, if you win this year, then you'd have 5. So right. I don't know. Find a time machine, meet Phineas and Ferb. That's my only thoughts towards that.
Man, I appreciate every player that does that, but man, you're going to get destroyed when it doesn't happen. And it's going to happen because, I mean, if you're winning that many, dude, you're out of your mind. Like, that's great. Good for you. Greatest of all time, maybe. At that point.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, we'll deep dive into more free agency segments coming up and maybe a little bit more into the waters of Bronny James and if the Suns are actually going to make a move there. I don't know. I feel kind of split.
Draft special.
Yeah, we'll be doing plenty of draft specials. Just wait till next year's NFL draft. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I can't wait. I
Yeah.
can't wait.
We'll be boots on the ground.
Where is it? Pittsburgh? Or where is it?
Is it in Green Bay?
It's Green
Yep.
Bay.
Green Bay. Yep.
That
First
could be
live show.
be hilarious, actually.
Dude, that's what we should do. That we should make this
We
happen.
just we don't do it in this format. We just like start polling people. We start like asking the fans.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People in Green Bay are great people too. Very friendly, so they'd probably be drunk. They'd be more than happy to do it.
Have a little spotted cow.
Oh,
Mhm.
precisely.
Go to historic Lambeau and have a good time.
All right, I'm gonna segue into the UFC segment if that's all right with all of you. So, big card this weekend: Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier is easily the biggest talk of the town, and Makhachev's easily the favorite, minus 625 if you're looking to gamble right now. And I just looked it up. But the fight of the night, in my opinion, is going to be Sean Strickland against Paulo Costa, excuse me. And I believe Sean Strickland's going to win. He's definitely my favorite UFC fighter, as is. And the best part about him is you have no clue what this guy's going to say on camera. He's not up to the level of McGregor, where you put the camera on him and it's literally just like star reality TV. But at least with Strickland, not only are you going to get a great fight, I think you're also going to get an absolutely fantastic interview if he wins. And even if he loses, I think it should be a great fight either way, but definitely taking Islam. That's my 2 cents. I think he's a heavy favorite, so I'd bet the house against him. This is not financial advice, but that's just what I would do. And yeah, definitely going with Sean Strickland. So those are the 2 fights I'm going to be watching this weekend. Obviously, they're the biggest, but that's just my 30 seconds about the UFC.
You'd parlay Islam and Strickland together?
Yeah, definitely. Islam's also 3 years younger than Poirier. I just looked that up. And I think he's 25-1. That man strikes the he's definitely probably one of the hardest hitters and is just a phenomenal fighter overall. So
amazing.
Spent 30 seconds in the UFC. And also, just to tap back in with McGregor, less than a month away, we will all be witnessing his rebound, as we mentioned in the last pod. We'll circle back to that later on, though.
We might have to get into at some point giving out picks of the week, one for everybody, and keep track on tracker. I think that'd be fun.
I don't hate the idea.
Yeah, we'll table that. And come football season and everything else too, we'll be doing some live picks. Hopefully the pick'em runs a bit longer than it did last year. For those who don't know, we got it all set up, and I think we lasted maybe to the second or third game of the first week. So we'll try to revive that this year.
Are we gonna do a punishment? I mean, I know this is so far in advance, but should there be a punishment?
Maybe we'll take some crowd answers on the punishment.
Yeah.
Try to get some submissions there.
That'd be interesting.
And another thing we'll be doing too is we'll be coming out with new logos, more social media presence on different channels. We'll be posting all those things and where you can find us and follow us. But while we're wrapping up here, guys, any other things top of mind? Anybody doing anything fun this weekend? No,
I'm just locking in for this UFC fight. For all the fans watching, just please let us know any comments or segments you'd like to see. Definitely you're going to get involved more with the sports betting here on out, or just the picks, just to have something fun to do. But any specific questions, let us know. And also please hit that like and subscribe and share. We're open to any suggestions. We want this to be interactive. So just leave us a comment and let us know what you want us to do.
Yeah.
Ad sponsors.
Yeah. Sponsors.
Ad sponsors, yes.
Ad
You
sponsors.
can put it over my face if you want. Like, we can put if we want it on the screen, I will happily do that.
We are open to offers. Well, guys, I think that's a wrap. Everybody, thanks for tuning in for episode 2 of the Fifth Quarter Collective. We'll see you next week.
Sweet.